You bought an AWD vehicle because you wanted safety, better traction, more confidence in rain and snow. But what if I told you some all-wheel drive systems developed reputations for expensive failures, complicated repairs, and problems owners never expected, and most people don't realize it until the dashboard lights up with AWD system fault. The car starts jerking through turns, or the dealer hands them a repair estimate worth thousands. Today, we're counting down 10 AWD systems that left a lot of owners wishing they had done more research first. If you're buying used or already driving one of these vehicles, this might be the most important video you watch before your next winter commute. And if this video saves you from a costly mistake, smash that like button and subscribe. Let's count them down. Let's get into it. Number 10. Ford Control Track AWD. Ford's Control Track system sounded impressive on paper. Automatic engagement, selectable drive modes, and marketing that suggested real all-weather capability. But over time, the system developed a reputation for transfer case problems, inconsistent engagement issues, and expensive repairs, especially in older Ford Explorer and Mercury Mountaineer models from the late 1990s and 2000s. Many owners reported situations where the AWD system didn't respond the way they expected in snow, rain, or slippery conditions. And as these vehicles aged, transfer case failures and electronic engagement problems became increasingly common repair items. Replacement costs could easily climb into the thousands depending on the damage and whether a rebuild or brand new unit was installed. What made Control Track especially frustrating for some owners was how subtle the failures could feel. In many cases, drivers assumed the system was operating normally, until bad weather or low traction conditions exposed the problem, and the vehicle behaved more like a traditional two-wheel drive SUV than a confident AWD machine. Number 9. Chrysler/Dodge NV140/NV144. Transfer case AWD systems. Chrysler's AWD implementation in early 2000s vehicles, such as the Chrysler Pacifica, first generation, and certain Dodge minivan variants, was ambitious in concept, but in practice developed a mixed reputation over time. The NV140 and NV144 transfer cases used in these systems have been associated with reported issues such as internal chain wear, vibration under load, and noise as mileage increases. Some owners also experienced intermittent AWD engagement behavior or reduced effectiveness of the system in low traction conditions, particularly as components aged. Over time, seal wear and fluid leakage were also noted as maintenance concerns in higher mileage vehicles, which could contribute to accelerated drivetrain wear if not addressed. One of the more frustrating aspects for owners was that these issues often appeared gradually, rather than as a single obvious failure, which sometimes led to delayed diagnosis. Repair costs varied widely depending on damage and labor rates, but in some cases, transfer case service or replacement could reach into the low thousands range. A significant expense for vehicles often purchased for family utility and long-term reliability. Overall, the system itself was not necessarily catastrophic, but it did develop enough recurring drivetrain-related complaints over time that it earned a cautious reputation among some independent mechanics. Number 8. Land Rover Terrain Response, Early Freelander/LR2. Land Rover's terrain response system on higher spec models is genuinely capable. However, on the Land Rover Freelander 2, sold as the LR2 in North America, the underlying AWD hardware told a more complicated story. These vehicles used a Haldex-based on-demand AWD system, which operates primarily as front-wheel drive under normal conditions and sends torque to the rear axle when slip is detected. In theory, this setup works well for compact crossovers, but in real-world use, the system's response characteristics were sometimes described by owners as inconsistent, particularly in rapidly changing low-traction conditions. A more significant long-term issue was maintenance sensitivity. The Haldex coupling requires specific fluid service at regular intervals, and this maintenance was often overlooked by owners or missed during general servicing. Over time, neglected units could experience reduced AWD effectiveness due to internal wear, sometimes without immediate warning indicators. Replacement or major servicing of the Haldex unit can range into the $1,500 to $2,500 territory, depending on labor and parts. While not inherently a failed design, the combination of maintenance sensitivity and real-world performance variability contributed to a mixed reputation for long-term reliability and consistency in AWD operation. Number 7. General Motors. Part-time AWD/AutoTrack system, early Trailblazer/Envoy. GM's early 2000s, AWD/4. WD system used in vehicles like the Chevrolet Trailblazer and GMC Envoy was designed as a cost-effective part-time traction system intended to provide additional grip when needed. The system relied on an electronically controlled transfer case with a clutch-based auto Ford WD mode, which could send torque to the front or rear axle depending on detected wheel slip. While simple in concept, the real-world behavior was not always as smooth or predictable as fully modern AWD systems. In some driving conditions, there could be a noticeable delay between wheel slip and torque transfer, meaning the system often reacted after traction loss had already begun, rather than preventing it proactively. Over time, the transfer case, clutch components, and related hardware could wear, leading to reduced effectiveness of the AWD/4WD engagement. In more advanced cases, the system would default to more limited drive behavior, effectively reducing the benefit of the AWD functionality. Repair costs for transfer case-related issues typically ranged from several hundred to over $1,000 depending on severity. While not inherently a fundamentally failed design, the system's behavior and long-term wear characteristics contributed to a reputation among some owners for being less confidence-inspiring than the AWD branding suggested in real-world winter or off-road conditions. Number 6. Volkswagen 4. Motion Haldex Generation 3 and 4. Volkswagen's 4Motion badge is used across models like the Volkswagen Tiguan, Volkswagen Golf R, and Volkswagen Passat. But the real-world behavior depends heavily on which generation of Haldex system is installed. Generation 3 and 4 Haldex units used in these vehicles have been associated with reported issues over time, particularly involving the Haldex pump and its ability to properly pre-charge the coupling system. When the pump begins to weaken or fail, the system can default to primarily front-wheel drive operation. In many cases, drivers may not immediately notice a clear warning. Instead, the change often becomes apparent during low-traction driving, where the rear axle contributes less than expected. The result is a vehicle that still carries an AWD badge, but in practice may not deliver the level of traction assistance the driver assumes is available. Haldex servicing, including regular fluid and filter maintenance, is required to keep the system operating properly, typically every 30,000 to 40,000 miles. When this maintenance is skipped, wear on the pump and coupling components can accelerate over time. Repair or replacement costs for the Haldex pump and related components generally range from several hundred to over $1,000 depending on damage and labor. And here's the part most people don't think about. It's not that these AWD systems fail in a dramatic way. They usually keep working just well enough to make you believe everything is fine, even when something is already starting to go wrong underneath. You drive in rain, snow, highway traffic, nothing feels broken, so you trust it completely. But that's the trap, because AWD issues rarely announce themselves. They show up quietly in hesitation, small delays, moments where the system should react instantly but doesn't. And by the time you notice it, it's no longer about whether something is wrong. It's about how expensive it's going to be. You're halfway through the list, and now we're getting into the AWD systems where the problems start getting expensive. The number 1 AWD system might genuinely surprise you. Please subscribe and stay tuned for more. We really appreciate you being part of our journey to 1,000 subscribers. Number 5. Nissan Part-Time AWD, Early Murano/Quest. Nissan's early AWD systems in models like the Nissan Murano and certain configurations of the Nissan Quest used an on-demand torque split setup designed to prioritize efficiency by operating primarily in front-wheel drive. Under normal conditions, the system sends most power to the front wheels and engages the rear axle through an electronically controlled coupling when wheel slip is detected. In real-world driving, especially in low-traction situations like ice or sudden wet road acceleration, some drivers reported that the system's engagement was not always immediate, meaning traction loss could occur before additional rear torque was fully applied. Over time, components in the rear coupling system and associated drivetrain hardware could experience wear, particularly if maintenance was neglected. In some cases, this led to reduced AWD effectiveness or the need for servicing or replacement of rear drivetrain components. Repair costs could range from roughly $1,200 to $2,500 depending on the specific failure and labor involved. While not inherently a non-functional AWD system, its behavior and maintenance sensitivity contributed to a mixed long-term reputation among owners who expected more consistent all-weather confidence. Number 4. Jeep Compass/Patriot Freedom. Drive 1. Jeep's reputation for off-road capability is one of the strongest in the industry, which is exactly why the AWD system in the Jeep Compass and Jeep Patriot with Freedom Drive 1 created such mixed expectations. Freedom Drive 1 is an on-demand AWD system that primarily operates in front-wheel drive and uses an electronically controlled coupling to send torque to the rear wheels when slip is detected. In practice, the system was designed more for light traction assistance than serious off-road use. There is no low-range transfer case, and the setup is better suited for snow, rain, and mild off-pavement conditions rather than demanding terrain. Under extended load, such as prolonged slippery conditions or light off-road driving, the coupling system has been known to experience heat buildup, which can reduce effectiveness and accelerate wear over time. In certain operating modes, the system behavior can also feel limited compared to more traditional full-time AWD setups, especially at higher speeds where torque transfer is more conservative. Repair costs for coupling-related issues typically range from around $900 to $1,800 depending on parts and labor. While not a broken system, Freedom Drive 1 often led to a noticeable gap between the Jeep branding and the real-world capabilities some buyers expected from the name. Number 3. BMW xDrive, early N63 V8 applications. BMW's BMW xDrive system in most applications is widely regarded as a capable and well-engineered AWD setup, designed to deliver strong traction and balanced handling. However, when paired with early applications of the BMW N63 V8 engine, the overall ownership experience becomes significantly more complex. The N63's Hot V configuration places major heat sources deep within the engine bay, resulting in consistently high operating temperatures in a tightly packaged drivetrain environment. While xDrive itself is not fundamentally flawed, the surrounding thermal conditions in these vehicles can contribute to accelerated wear of nearby components over time. In some higher mileage examples, owners and technicians have reported earlier than expected aging of transfer case seals, front differential components, and related drivetrain hardware. These issues are typically gradual rather than sudden failures. Transfer case servicing may sometimes reveal additional maintenance needs, such as seal replacement or driveline wear, especially in vehicles that have already required extensive engine-related repairs. Individually, these repairs are often manageable. However, combined with the known long-term maintenance demands of early N63-powered vehicles, the overall cost of ownership can become significantly higher than originally expected. Number 2. Subaru CV T-based AWD Active Torque Split System. Subaru symmetrical AWD has built its reputation on one of the most respected all-wheel drive systems in the industry, known for its balance, mechanical consistency, and year-round traction capability. However, in many Subaru models equipped with Subaru CVT transmissions, the AWD system is based on an active torque split setup, rather than the more mechanically rear-biased VTD configuration. This system primarily operates as front-wheel drive under normal conditions, and uses an electronically controlled clutch pack to send torque to the rear wheels when slip is detected. In everyday driving, it performs adequately for snow, rain, and typical road conditions. However, under sustained load, such as extended low-traction driving, repeated wheel slip events, or more aggressive use, the clutch-based system can generate heat and rely heavily on its cooling and control strategy to maintain consistent performance. With high mileage and repeated stress, clutch wear can occur gradually, sometimes showing up first as subtle changes in AWD responsiveness rather than immediate warning indicators. Repair or clutch pack service can range from approximately $1,500 to $2,500 depending on labor and damage severity. Number 1. Land Rover Terrain Response, Early Range Rover Sport / Discovery 3. Taking the top spot is a system that promised top-tier capability and often delivered one of the most expensive ownership experiences on this list. Early versions of the Land Rover Discovery 3 and Range Rover Sport L320 combined a full-time four-wheel drive system with terrain response, air suspension, and highly integrated electronic drivetrain controls. On paper, it was one of the most advanced off-road systems of its time. In reality, the same level of complexity meant that multiple systems were interconnected, and when one component developed a fault, it could trigger a chain of related issues. Air suspension problems, sensor faults, or drivetrain control errors could sometimes limit available modes or reduce system effectiveness until repaired. Repair costs vary widely, but suspension, transfer case, and drivetrain-related work can quickly reach several $1,000s, especially on higher mileage vehicles. What makes this system number one is not a lack of capability. It's the cost and complexity of maintaining that capability over time. The gap between performance and long-term ownership cost is wider here than anywhere else on this list. These 10 systems all tell the same story: AWD badges and marketing claims that often outpaced real-world durability, leaving some owners with a false sense of confidence and unexpected repair costs. The takeaway is simple: an AWD badge doesn't mean much without solid engineering behind it. Always check real-world reliability before buying. Follow proper service intervals, especially on systems like haul decks that depend on fluid maintenance many owners overlook. And don't ignore changes in how your AWD system feels, because small issues often turn into expensive repairs over time. So what about you? What AWD system are you driving right now? Or have you experienced any of these failures firsthand? Drop it in the comments. If this video helped, hit like and subscribe for more real-world automotive insights. Thanks for watching. See you next time.